What's going on there, folks? Good morning. It is the Earthmaster back here on this end of the weekend, Sunday, September 17th, 2023. It's about 10:10 a.m. California time here along the West Coast. And latest activity looks like some movement, 5.1 over here across the area outside the Himalaya Mountains. Getting a little swarm of activity up here. Some 4s and 5s kicking up there. Just one area that we're kind of watching. Another area is up here at the very northern end of the Cascadia Subduction Zone. Got things kind of cranking up here slightly with some earthquake activity this morning. So far, quite a few 4s and even a 5.6 earthquake coming into the area outside the Queen Charlotte Sound. Now, this is, again, the northern edge of the Cascadia Subduction Zone. A very sensitive area in terms of plate dynamics, but there's definitely been some activity ramping up out here, and this is not just the only activity. We've seen some movement over the past week or so. Let's see if we can bring up the activity up there. EMSC has been shown a lot more than the USGS, so I need to bring back, it's maybe too many here. Let's see if we can get the USGS, bring up some. It doesn't look like they're going to, but there has been a handful of other quakes in this area as well. Which makes it a little on the concerning side because, again, this is the northern edge of the subduction zone. They do see some earthquakes up here on occasion. This here is that same area. I pulled up 5.5 and above since, well, at least since records have been kept. Of course, mega thrust area down here is going to be that 9.0, and that's the entire length of the Cascadia Subduction Zone. Now, they just happen to have it positioned right here off the coast of Oregon. That was back in 1700, that big 9-pointer. So up here, you got the Explorer Plate. Now, the Explorer Plate is just this little small portion of the Juan de Fuca Plate. It's little, just, I'm thinking the cutoff line, they don't really show it here. I believe the cutoff line is either right here or potentially right here. And then you got, that's the Explorer Plate up north, and then the Juan de Fuca Plate here. And then the Gorda Plate is another separate little plate here that cuts off roughly about here, I believe. But as a whole, most people just call this the Juan de Fuca Plate, and that is definitely being subducted underneath the North American Plate here towards the east. It has been for quite some time, and eventually it will no longer be a plate at all out there. You know, a long time down the road, probably after humanity has been erased. But yeah, a little bit of activity stirring up out here. Let me see what we got for the last movement specifically in this area. The other thing that's worrying me is this earthquake. This is literally right on the Cascadia Subduction Zone, in between the mix of all these earthquakes. So we know that there's quite a bit of strain out here stressing the region. That earthquake, again, right smack dab on the Cascadia Subduction Zone. I guess another model we can look at is the Earthquakes Canada map. And that might be something to look at here in just a second. But I want to look at the historical data here. Here is the earthquake this morning, that 5.6 in the mix. So we can get some other earthquakes out there. 6.7 back in 1992, 6.5. 7.5. Yeah, we can get some big earthquakes out here. It's been a while since we've seen any movement up in this area as far as larger scale activity goes. 6.6 back in 2008. There's that 7.5 back in 1929. And then, of course, cluster down here. So this area is not out of the equation when it comes to producing large earthquakes. It's very possible we could see, you know, some larger scale movement up here, and it may not necessarily be the big one, like far as the 9-pointer that could strike down here along the entire length of the Cascadia, but you just never know. Something may trigger it. It's been 323 years of built-up pressure out there. So we're just kind of watching that, seeing how this plays out. I don't think I have any seismograph stations up there. I'll have to see if I can't add one or two specifically for this area to watch that movement. Now let me look at Earthquakes Canada here. Let's see if I can bring this up here. Earthquakes Canada is going to be right here. We'll check this out real quick. Let's see what we got on their latest map. There we go. Bring up the plate boundaries. Again, the Cascadia Subduction Zone itself is right here on this blue line. This line that's here to the west is the plate boundary between the Juan de Fuca plate and the Pacific plate here. So subduction begins right here, right where that little orange quake is on the blue line, southward, all the way into Northern California. It ends down here, right here at the Mendocino Triple Point Junction. And let's see, these guys definitely showing a little bit more activity. Now that goes since, oh, where's their legend at? There it is. This shows about the last month and even older movement here, specifically in this area. So here we go. We can see a little bit more of the movement within the last week. Notice quite a few more earthquakes and smaller ones. Some of these may be under 4, maybe even under 3. There's a 2.8, but this just goes to show you that there's more earthquake activity happening up here than what the USGS is showing. You know, they're only showing a handful of smaller quakes there. But it looks like there's been clusters over the past, not only the past week, but over the past month time period specifically in that area. So we'll continue to watch that for some movement potentially here. This earthquake 913, that was a couple days ago. I'm looking for that one quake. Wonder if this has not been reviewed yet. Let me see. Oh, it has been reviewed. So looks like that will stick. It's in an area, like I say, it's right smack dab on the Cascadia. Oh, here we go. We can see the, basically here, we can see where the Explorer plate ends and the Juan de Fuca plate begins. I believe that's this area right here. Excuse me. It was nice and cool this morning. Enjoying this nice cool air, but there's also a little bit of smog out there, it seems like, from the forest fires. So yeah, things are definitely look like they're kicking up slightly here across this area of the Cascadia. The tremor map last night, pull this up, make sure we got the most recent tremor map, shows a little bit of tremor up here outside of the Seattle area down into southern Washington here, southwestern Washington and northern California. Not a whole lot of tremor up here. And that earthquake activity is taking place. Let's see, here's the Cascadia Subduction Zone contours, the area of deeper levels. And of course you can see kind of where that extends up here. Most of the time, like I say, these earthquakes, as we've seen historically, can be somewhat large up here. And let's see what we got here. I didn't mean to go all the way down here. Was there 6.0 a little bit further down this year? A little bit further down this year, down along the more closer to that that separation there of that plate boundary, the Juan de Fuca and the Explorer plate. Prior to that, looks like there was a 6.3 in this area, 6.0 back in 2019, a couple there in 2019. Goodness, how many six pointers did we have? Quite a bit. 5.7, 6.0, 5.6. So it looks like, you know, activity can come and go in this area. Either way, it's something I watch because that Cascadia does sit, you know, a pretty lengthy subduction zone. Get some movement in or around it. Something to watch pretty closely. So again, movement here along the Cascadia. That's definitely right smack dab on the Cascadia, and it has been reviewed. This earthquake activity here off of the Cascadia, back prior to it, but this is a very small microplate, the Explorer plate right here, and that's you know, that can get crunched easily between these two massive plates on each side of it. So easily seen some earthquake activity here historically, but this right here not so much. So it's a little interesting to see that movement right smack dab on the Cascadia. Also seeing California light up here in the last hour or so along the plate boundary, so that means that we do have some movement potentially to watch out here across the eastern Pacific. All right, let's see what we got here aside from that movement up there around the Queen Charlotte Sound. 2.5, Carnation, Washington. Never heard of that area. 16 kilometers deep outside of Seattle, just off the Seattle fault zone. This is another dangerous area in terms of large-scale potential and damage. I think concerning this fault system that runs directly through Seattle, highly populated region, that's like one of the worst places to build a huge city. I think this area seen a 7-pointer. I think this is maybe it's potentially a 7.3, 7.4 or so. Is maybe a little bit higher. I don't remember exactly, but I think this has more potential for damage than, say, the Cascadia going for a 9-pointer due to proximity, right? Yes, the subduction zone sits out here, and that's going to be a bigger magnitude, but the proximity here is away from the Cascadia, and you got this fault system running right underneath Seattle. So 7.2, 7.3 underneath Seattle, I think would do tremendous more damage than the Cascadia would due to proximity here. So we'll watch that Seattle fault system. It's got, there's so many faults out here that are overdue, and we've just been living in times of quietness, so to speak, here. But they always won't stay that way, right? It's not going to stay quiet forever. All right, here's the movement just outside of San Francisco, near Pacifica. Beautiful town, but I would not want to live down there. That's just right smack down. That's like building your house on top of a volcano, right? People love the oceanic views, I get it. But right along the plate boundary, yeah. And this is right smack dab on the ocean. Look at that. No thank you. 2.3, 8 kilometers deep, just off the San Andreas Fault. This movement up here into the Clear Lake volcanic field near Cobb Mountain, that's a different story. That's got to do with the Calpine hydrothermal operations out there. Here's a satellite view. I'll show you guys here real quick. There's numerous facilities here. You see that steam, smoke, whatever it is. It's steam, and it's probably not good smelling steam either. They use a whole process there of a certain ingredient that they use to make energy or to create steam down there in the heated surface below. It's not good. But look it up if you're curious about the Calpine hydrothermal operations. And, again, they do create earthquakes out there. Let's see, what's this earthquake up here? That's from yesterday, 2.9 near Biggs. I don't think that has been reviewed. It's still underneath automatic status, so they probably won't get to this until Monday when someone comes into the office and checks it out. They should have someone working on the weekend, right? I mean, I would gladly check out the seismograph stations and see if this is a legit earthquake, but they don't want to hire people on the weekends, maybe working from home. Who knows? See what else we got here across the California area. Aside from that newer quake right there, there was that one. Let's see, that was yesterday. Both of those were yesterday, those 2-pointers. Mostly smaller microquakes across the area this morning as well, but again, with this movement taking place up north, movement along the plate boundary specifically, just be on guard out here along the west coast. It's just a little eerie feeling out there this morning. All right, Cayman Islands area, seen a 4.2. South of the Georgetown area, 4.2, 10 kilometers deep, just on the plate boundary here between the Caribbean plates and the North American plate up north. That's going to be this little area right here. A lot going on with this little plate, right? It's just, these little plates are going to disappear over time, just like the Juan de Fuca plate. It will slowly get gobbled up and pushed underneath the North American area. And I think the same eventually for the area of the Caribbean plate. Area gets squeezed quite a bit here between two major plates, and they got the Cocos plate over here. It's just a very dynamic area in terms of plate boundaries and plate tectonics here. It's pretty crazy. Subduction zones all over the place. And we got a 4.2 out there around the Cayman Islands. Just a little bit of activity. Puerto Rico area, quite a few 2s and 3s out there in the last 24 hours. That's another hazardous region for big earthquakes. Couple 5s there from yesterday. That's down along the Peru-Chile Trench. Let's see what we got for earthquake activity. in the smaller department, smaller range here, quite a few 2s and 3s. That's being reported by the EMSC. But that, again, that's very typical to see in any subduction zone, just like the area across the Middle America Trench. This is major subduction zone as well. Seeing quite a few 2s and 3s. All right, let's see what else we got here. Zoom over to the USGS map. We really haven't seen any adjustment here, back building across the Tonga or the Kermadec Trench or New Zealand. The last couple earthquakes here this morning looks like they've been around the Vanuatu area and Solomon Islands region. But this will probably fill in here quite soon across the Tonga area and the Fiji region. Looks like New Zealand had slight activity this morning. Let me go check them out here real quick and see what we got for the GeoNet folks here. Here's that 4.4 from yesterday or 2 days ago. Looks like an hour ago, 3.4 off the North Island coast here. 2.4 down here in between those two areas. A couple smaller quakes. Again, this is a major plate boundary. Expected to have, microquake activity. I'm not really seeing any swarms of activity currently. We would probably see that on the earthquake drums. That would give us a good indicator. There's that little earthquake earlier this morning. That doesn't even look like a 3-pointer. But yeah, if you look here, things are awfully quiet across New Zealand. Goodness. Almost too quiet. Let's check out the volcano drums here, see if we got any. I mean, obviously, if looks like maybe a little bit of activity here across this volcano. Taupo supervolcano looks pretty quiet. This right here looks like some type of wind event. Is what I'm guessing. Large-scale wind event here across this area. All right, so we'll watch this area here today. I think that's going to fill in sometime today with this movement that's continuing to take place here. And this area remains quiet. But the general plate dynamics out here tells us once we get movement across this plate boundary here, the general momentum of the GPS stations here that's been monitored, for quite a while, these arrows point back building of pressure out here across this plate boundary. So that should fill in quite nicely today. And of course, the longer and quieter it is, I'm sure the larger the quake will be. There's a little bit of activity up here in Tajikistan. One of those correct pronunciations there, 4.6 from earlier this morning, and a couple other 4s in there as well. As far as the Mediterranean region goes, let's see what we got. Slight activity. There's, there's EMSC again. 5.1. I highly doubt it. Sometimes these earthquakes they throw up there, again, I keep saying it, I keep repeating myself because they keep throwing up these false earthquakes that look large, but they get revised to like a, it's probably this one up here, maybe the smaller one in the Spain area. I'm not for sure why, but it's always different. There's no 5-pointers up here that I can see, and this activity here across the Morocco region is much smaller than a 5. So this earthquake you see up here on the globe is a wrong magnitude. So specifically around this area, the EMSC puts out incorrect information, and it doesn't get updated here on the globe. I don't know why, but it never does. Either way, earthquake activity in Morocco looks like some smaller quake activity. The Atlantic Ocean, pretty quiet. Nothing going on up and down the board. 5.0 down in the South Sandwich Trench from yesterday, I believe. A little bit older movement. But we'll keep an eye on the West Coast and the Eastern Pacific out here. Things look like they want to move in that area. Yellowstone National Park. We'll go ahead and check this out here real quick. These are distant earthquakes. Look at that. Those are going to be the earthquakes that are popping up there across the northern edge of the Cascadia Subduction Zone. That 5.6 is at 0 0428. 0428, right? Double check that. That's going to be 11:28 UTC time. So how we can tell, 11:28. That's an older one right here. Got so many windows open. I'm going to stop that. That's a bad habit. 11:28 UTC time. Here's 11:28 UTC time. It's going to be roughly about here. It almost looks like there was 2 earthquakes in that mix of activity there across the northern edge of the Cascadia. I see 2 signatures, it looks like. See that? That's showing up on many stations here around Yellowstone. Now, you know, Cascadia is a long ways away from Yellowstone, but a 5-pointer will show up, and maybe there was 2 5-pointers. To me, that's what it looks like. You got the P wave, S wave, and then another P wave here, followed up by longer duration S wave, and that's what it looks like. Even on this one, even the ones that are tuned down slightly picked up 2 distinct signatures. So, and then the USGS is only showing a 5.6 around that time. A couple earthquakes earlier this morning within seconds of each other. That's why I'm saying things are building up out here. But specifically for those 2 signatures I'm showing you, this is 1059 for those 4s. I don't know if they showed up here in Yellowstone or not. They may have been a little bit earlier. But yeah, it looks like there was maybe 2 5-pointers out there. Goodness. All right, but as far as local seismograph activity on Yellowstone, I don't see it. I'm not for sure what this is down here. It's really not showing up locally across any other stations here. And these are all, they look like they're all in tune with each other, except for the Madison River area. I'm not for sure why that's toned down. But these 4 right here look pretty well tuned. And this activity, if it was anything legit, it would show up across these 4 or 3 or 4 other stations here. That looks like it could be, who knows, tractors, maybe someone out there around the area performing construction or something. Sometimes outside noise interference creates that vibrational noise across the graphs. All right, let's check out space weather activity. As our sunspot, the one that was pretty active here, 3429, looks like, wow. Isn't that crazy how quickly it can degrade? I mean, literally, I think yesterday morning when I was doing the update, it looks somewhat complex. Last night, starting to look like this, and this morning, it's even worse. There's not a whole lot of complexity out there at all. I doubt this thing will flare at all anymore. It did produce, you know, a few M flares and quite a few C flares. Even had a nice prominence or filament eruption here that blasted off a couple days ago. We are getting a little bit of development here across this sunspot, but that is sweeping out there across the western limb, and we got a better view here of a newer sunspot coming around the eastern limb. That's going to be number 3435. That's last night's image. Here's today's. A little bit further on the visible disk. It's hard to say. There's a little bit of complexity in there, but it's not quite as active as I would like to see it. Right now, 95% chance for a C flare, M flare at 35, X flare around 5% chance. And as you can see, over the past 24 hours, things have pretty much taken a nosedive. This was from that very active sunspot, and after that, it just died completely. But we did get a couple small CMEs that were headed this direction. Now, it looks like we could see a slight elevated aurora forecast here in the coming days, potentially around the 19th. Nothing major. I'm not seeing any G2, G3 storms. Maybe if we're lucky up around the G1 category, which most of the time keeps the auroras up at the extreme higher latitudes, but we'll continue to watch that. Space weather has been a little odd here recently. A couple coronal holes that are floating out here on the visible disk as well. You can kind of see them over here, the latest imagery. There's going to be these darker regions. Some free-flowing solar wind stream that could enhance a little bit of conditions here on the aurora forecast a little bit later in the days ahead. All right, what else are we doing this weekend? Any storms going on out there? A little bit of movement here across Northern California. Of course, here in the valley, you can see where the valley is. Sacramento Valley is a huge, I call it the gutter, because we get rain shadowed. But thunderstorms building up here in the mountains, and that's where that outline is. Doesn't look like anything major today. 2% chance for tornado probability out there across the extreme portion of South Carolina, North Carolina region, that confined mostly to that area. Really not a whole lot of wind or hail threat either. 5% chance down there. So severe weather, not a huge outlook today. Of course, thunderstorms going to be popping up, but I wouldn't call thunderstorms severe unless they reach that potential level, right? Talking about large hail or extreme winds, which is not a huge chance here today across the area. All right, numerical model here once again, the latest imagery. Got some cooler temperatures out here across portions of the Midwest, eastern portion of the country. Nice little trough out there, bringing that storminess out there to North and South Carolina as well. That's going to scoot on out of there, and got high pressure building back in across portions of Canada. It's going to be cooking up there. And, I'd rather have it over there than over here. That's just because of my proximity, right? Right here where I'm at. We got some troughing going on out here, bringing us some cooler temperatures down into the low 80s, maybe even the upper 70s, which is fine by me. I'm ready for wintertime. In fact, the leaves out here on my, I got a couple fruitless mulberry trees. They're really good for shade in the summertime. They're starting to lose their leaves already, and that's a little odd because most of the time is not until around November or so. At least here in California, in Northern California where I live, before they start losing their leaves. But it looks like they're starting to lose them early. Might be a good sign. You always got to pay attention to nature, animals. In fact, I wouldn't doubt it if we start hearing some snow geese migrating their way down from the north. That's always a telltale sign here. They migrate to this area. A lot of farmers out here flood their fields with water, and this is their nesting ground in the wintertime. They come down here, and there's massive amounts of them. Maybe I'll get out there this winter and see if I can't live stream them a little bit more. I'm just so used to them, and a lot of people are like, what, snow geese? Why do you have snow geese there? So it might be of an interest. I'll make a couple videos here later this winter with the snow geese migration, but we should be hearing them pretty soon. So that trough going to scoot out of there. It looks like maybe, oh, look at that. That's not good for you guys or whoever else is out there. High pressure dominating this weather pattern towards the end of September. Long-range models, though, extreme long-range models do show some colder temperatures coming into October later on. But some troughing going on out here across the Pacific Northwest. And, we'll see how it goes throughout the early part of October. Either way, I'm looking for some cooler weather. I'm turned off the air conditioners. PG&E bill about $500 past couple months. That's what it is. That's what we pay out here. Some higher. Literally $500 for PG&E. That's electric and gas, natural gas bill every month. It's not good. Not good whatsoever. So I try to keep stuff minimal. Try to, utilize stuff just on the extreme minimal. But when it's 110 outside, you kind of have to run ACs. When you got kids in the house, you got computers running 24/7. You can't have that stuff going down. And kids don't like it when it's hot either. All right, folks, I'm going to jump off here. Have a good day. Again, stay safe, and we'll keep an eye on the area of the West Coast. It's just some interesting activity up here. Quite a bit of strain. Looks like it may want to work its way across the plate boundary here. We'll catch you guys back here a little bit later on this evening with the Sunday night update. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Take care, folks.